Hi guys and welcome back. It is currently pretty late at night. I have finished work, I've done all my things for the day, and I just kind of wanted to wind down a little bit and talk to you guys. And you might notice that the setting is a little different. I'm still figuring out how to organize my bookshelves, but you will get a full tour, don't worry. Once they're done though. And they're looking a little bit sparse right now because I have a huge pile of books here because today I'm doing a book recommendation tag. But I'm pretty sure it was Steph who came up with this tag. Since my YouTube is pretty new, I wanted to show you kind of like what my book taste is like. But let's just get right into it because there are a lot of books. The first one is a book you tell people that is your favorite. Like if you meet somebody on the street and they're like, what's your favorite book? What will you tell them? This is really hard for me because I have a lot of books that I love and are my favorites. But I think my go-to answer is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Pretty much anything by Sally Rooney. I just think that kind of makes me seem a little bit of an intellect. A little bit more like mysterious, cool girl. I don't know. I just think that it makes me seem smarter than I actually am. So I think I would tell them Normal People by Sally Rooney. I genuinely love this book so much. It's like infinity stars for me. Next one is a book that is your guilty pleasure. I don't have either one of these copies actually. My number one is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. There's just something about that book that when I first read it, I was like a whole new genre. It's not even a genre, I don't even know. Just opened up for me and I was a bit concerned, but it's my guilty pleasure book. And then another one that I'm a little scared to say. So if this book makes it into this video, we're officially best friends. Okay, okay. Pucking around. Okay, listen, we need to clarify some things out here before we get into it, because did I give that book 5 stars? No, not even 4. I gave it 3 stars. Did I absolutely love that book? No, I don't think so. Did I hate that book? No, I don't think so. My feelings about that book are still a bit confusing. I'm not quite sure what's going on up here most of the times, but especially when thinking about this book. Listen, there's a novella before this book that's maybe like 100 and something pages or 100 pages. Pucking Around alone, I think, is like 800 pages. She's by far the biggest book that I've read. I read the novella and Pucking Around, so around 1,000 pages, 900 to 1,000 pages in one day. I started it in the morning and I finished it by the night. So that's why I'm saying that it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. Now, if you haven't read that, I'm not going to tell you to read it because I don't want to. But if you have read it, I don't know what to tell you. I don't see. Okay, this book is not for the people who don't like smut, because this book is straight smut. Some bookstores market it as a hockey romance. No, don't go into it expecting, oh, a little cute, innocent, like fluffy hockey romance. No, that's not what it is. I went into this book thinking that it's a hockey romance. First there's content warnings and I'm like, what am I getting myself into? Definitely read the content warnings. I feel like I'm just promoting this book and I don't need to be talking about this book. I feel like the more I say don't read it, the more people want to read it. Read the content warnings. It's not a fluffy romance. It's the wildest book that I have by far read. And I've read some books. So do with that what you will. Okay, moving on. Next is a book everybody loved but you didn't. And I feel like mine might be a little bit controversial. Not really, but I just feel like these are very loved. I mean, that is the whole point of this question. Whatever. But my first one is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And then the second one is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. I'm sorry, okay? From me to you, I apologize. But listen, I read this whole series. I gave the first book, I think, 4 stars. Now looking back at it, maybe like a 3.5, but I really liked it. It was a good introduction to the series. Then I read the second book, 5 stars. Obsessed, incredible. I loved it so much and I was so excited for this book. I got my hands on this and I started reading it. If you've read the series, you know that there's a character that's maybe not the most likable. And we all knew that they were going to be in this book as well. This is how it's supposed to start. But I'm halfway. And I'm like, okay, it's time for them to go. I'm like 70% in and I'm like, listen, you're not welcomed anymore. It's time to Go by Taylor Swift. And overall, I was just a bit bored. It didn't I never got that feeling that I wanted to pick it up and read. It took me so long. It took me probably like a week to read it, but for me, that was a long time for what I was expecting, especially. So it was like a generous 3 stars, but I don't know. I don't know. I still recommend this series because my best friend loved this book. She was obsessed with the whole series. So listen, maybe this is just a me problem, and that's fine. This is the whole question. And the second one was Every Summer After, and I thought that it was a cute romance, and I think at the time I really liked it, but if I remember correctly, it was childhood friends to lovers, and then they become strangers for a minute, and when we find out why they became strangers and what happened between them, that's just I couldn't support it after that. Then I just kind of like, ugh. And if you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about, you know the trope. If you haven't read the book, go read the book and then you'll find out. That's one of my least favorite tropes in romance books, and I just couldn't do it. Next one is a book you read the fastest, besides Bucking Around. I think would have to be Right Move by Liz Tom Ford or Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. But I think I read this one faster. So I read this, I think, in a day, and this was I started it one night and then I finished the next day. I'm not a super fast reader. I can't read a book a day unless it's 300 pages and I'm reading on my Kindle and I have nothing else to do, then maybe. But this was one of the books that I read in one day. I read it on my Kindle. I was working at the same time. Every chance I got to take a break, I was speeding through those chapters. Oh my god, I just needed more of Ryan Shea all the time. And this is a pretty big book. It's almost 500 pages. So for a romance, that's a pretty big book. So yeah, I loved this book. Next one is a book that deserves more hype. So I have a few. First one I don't have a physical copy of, but it's Rebella by Lisa Mia Smith. I read this back in February, I believe, when it first came out. It was so fun. It's a YA fantasy, and if you've read Caraval, I think it's I haven't read Caraval, but from what I've heard, I think it's kind of similar vibes as Caraval, but it was so fun. It was so magical, so fun, and I just never see anybody talk about it. I never see anybody post about it, and I just think it deserves so much more hype. I don't have the physical copy, but I really want to have it. But yeah, I really love that book. So if you're looking for a fun, quick, easy fantasy, that book. And then I have another one. Okay, quick intermission from me editing, but I just remembered that there's this other book called Bittersweet Memories by Katharina Mora that I don't really see people talk about, but I was obsessed with that book, and that book has a lot of things that I usually hate in romance books, but I was still obsessed with it. I could not stop reading it, and after I finished, I was thinking about the characters for so long. So that's another one. I just don't know why I forgot about it. One which is A Cup of Zodiac by Alexis Gorgon. It was her debut novel. I genuinely really liked it. I was not expecting it at all. I don't know what I was expecting, but it's such a cute, fluffy romance. It's not a life-changing book, but it's just such a cute, fluffy romance. And I just feel like it deserves more hype than it has gotten, because I have never seen anybody talk about this book, but we need to be talking about this book. Next one is a book that is becoming a movie or TV series. And okay, I have a few again. So this is so exciting for me, but the Magnolia Parks universe is becoming, I believe, a TV series. And oh my god, I'm so excited. This series is my all-time favorite romance-y series or books or whatever. I love them so much. They have such a special place in my heart, and I will never ever get over these characters in these books. And then It Ends With Us is also becoming a movie, but I think it got postponed because of the strike, so I'm not sure when it's coming out, but I think it was supposed to come out. No, I can't remember when it was supposed to come out. It is in fact being made into a movie, and I know that we all have a very interesting opinions of it. What's in between here? Oh, a Polaroid. Okay. Next is a book you've reread the most. So I actually don't reread books. I want to, but I have this mental block where I'm like, what if it's not as good as the first time? And then what if it's ruined for me? But I have reread Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? It was still as good. I still loved it. And I'm currently rereading Little Life. Yeah, it's not any easier as it was the first time. Next one is a book from a genre you don't typically read. So I'm pretty open to genres, or I have a few historical fiction books, but I haven't read them yet. So I can't really show them because I haven't read them. But I chose Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton because it's one of my favorite books as well. These are, there's so many favorites here. But it's so good. It's one of those books that like every girl in their 20s should read. She is everything. The book and the author, everything to me. I would do anything for them. And this is memoir. And I don't really read much memoirs. I'm open to reading them, but I just don't read them much. Next is a book that deserves all the hype it gets. And this is a book that I actually just started reading. Throne Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I believe the whole series. I'm only on the first book, but I genuinely really love this book. I read the ACOTAR series and I love those books so much, but I love this one more, which is not what I was expecting at all. I was expecting this to be really difficult to get into, super high fantasy, kind of slow, not as easy to get into, but no, it is amazing, so easy to get into, way easier to get into than ACOTAR, at least for me. Way more fast paced, just not as high fantasy, and just it's incredible. So I think this series deserves all the hype, and this is your sign to go start it. And I did start with Throne of Glass, and I know that there's different ways or different orders to read it in, but this was the best for me, so I started with Throne of Glass. Next is a book you usually recommend when somebody asks for a recommendation. So this really depends. If they're a romance reader, either A Love in Other Words or Archer's Voice or something like easy and fluffy like that, that's like just quick to read. If they want to read fantasy, I'll say Fourth Wing. I used to say ACOTAR, but after reading Fourth Wing, I do think that this is easier to get into because it's kind of just straight to the point. And also ACOTAR can kind of be a little daunting because it's a big, or not a big series, but some of the books are just long. And it's also a series to commit to. So I know for a lot of people, it is their first fantasy, me included. But I think this is more like a low effort, easy to get into fantasy. If they're a thriller reader, I'll usually say anything by Alice Feeney, like Rock, Paper, Scissors. I just don't have the copy, so I'm just showing this book. Or even like the Alex Macadeli's book, so like Silent Patient and The Maidens. I just think that those are really good, gripping thrillers to read. And then there's like that in between that's not kind of romance, but it's not really literary fiction either. I'll then recommend anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid. But most likely Daisy Jones, Malibu Rising, Evelyn Hugo. Then a book that has your favorite characters. There's so many of my favorite characters in the books that I've already showed you guys, but I don't want to cheat, so I'm gonna say Malibu Rising. There is the Riva kids, but especially Nina Riva. She's my girl. She's one of my favorite girls. A book you wish you could live in. This book specifically. So this is the second book in the ACOTAR series, and if you've read the series, you know the first book and the rest of the series. And I specifically want to live in the rest of the series, but I can't really say much about that, just in case somebody hasn't read the series. Next is a book you thought you would hate but ended up loving, and this is Where the Crawdads Sing. So I don't even know what I was expecting from this, but I remember kind of having to force myself to start it because I really wanted to read it before the movie came out, but I was like, I'm not really in the mood, I'm not really feeling it, I just don't think I would like it. And then I just kind of forced myself to start, and I just fell in love with the writing. And I know that this book has like mixed reviews because some people really love the nature scenes and love the detailed description, and some people really hate it, but I am one of those people who love it, and I just thought that it was absolutely beautiful, and I love the movie as well. So this was definitely a book that I absolutely thought that I was gonna hate, but I ended up giving it 5 stars. Next is a book that made you cry. And actually, I'm not a crier. I don't cry at books, I don't really cry at movies, I don't really cry overall. And even though I really can get attached to characters, like Little Life, for example, I just don't really cry. I don't know what it is. So it's weird that the book I'm going to be showing you is The Last Letter by Rebecca Yarros. If you read this book, you probably know that it's an emotional roller coaster. Actually, there's another book, Caught Up by Liz Tom Ford, and I feel like there's a common theme here. But I don't want to tell what it is because then it'll spoil the books. But there was a scene in Caught Up that made me tear up a bit towards the end. And there is a scene in here that made me bawl my eyes out. But also it was like 2 a.m. and I had stayed up reading this book, and I was a little bit sleep deprived because I don't usually go to sleep at 2 a.m. at all. So I was a bit sleep deprived. I think that had something to do with it. I was feeling a little emotional. However, I think I know now what my crying trigger is now that I'm thinking about it, because Caught Up and this made me cry. Do with that what you will, but read this book. Also a book that doesn't get enough hype, I feel like. And then a book you wish you could read for the first time. There are so many, like The Magnolia Parks, Little Life, or even Love in Other Words, like so many books that I really wish that I could read for the first time. But I'm gonna say Shatter Me because I can't say too much why. It's a very, very fast-paced series. So I was reading these books, like I think I read the first like 5 books and novellas, like I think it's 3 books, 2 novellas or something like that, within 2 days. But then you get to a certain book and certain things change a bit. If you've read the series, you know what I'm talking about. Now if I would reread it, it wouldn't be the same. So I wish I could read it for the first time. But that was the whole challenge or the tag. And yeah, I hope you guys got to know my book taste a little bit more. And again, thank you for hanging out with me. I had such a great time hanging out with you guys and talking to you guys. And I hope I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!